All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole, and welcome to this month's PatternFly community meeting. Following this meeting, I will post the recording to YouTube, to our PatternFly YouTube channel, and send out a link to the recording and all of the slides on the PatternFly mailing list. So if you're not on the mailing list, feel free to reach out to me, or there's going to be a link on the slides for signing up for that as well. So we have a little bit of a condensed agenda today, but we also have had two releases since our last community meeting. So there's quite a number of features and enhancements and updates from the release side that we want to walk you through. So we might have time for questions at the end. But if you have questions during presentations, feel free to use the chat, and we'll do our best to monitor that as well. All right, without further ado, I will hand it over for our first update from Jessie about accessibility. Take it away.
Hi everyone. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. All right, can you guys see this?
Yep.
Cool. Okay, so the big thing I wanted to talk about is the updates that we've made to our accessibility guide. I found that accessibility can be kind of a confusing topic for a lot of people, and I wanted to update not only what we had, but better organize what we had. Before we had one long page, and if let's say you wanted development information, you would have to sift through a lot of information to get there and to figure out where you need to be. So I wanted to better provide this information for you guys in a way that is organized and easy to consume. So I'm going to run through what we've updated and what this looks like. So for example, the very first page we have is about the accessibility fundamentals. Previously, we talked a little bit about users, but I wanted to kind of flesh out what this means and the users we're thinking of, how we're actually catering to these users and their experience that they're having when they're using both PatternFly, but also the products that have PatternFly. And we've also added some imagery to kind of better explain these things, that it's not just one user. A lot of times people think of someone who's just blind, but there's a whole spectrum of experience that users have, and I wanted to touch on this with this imagery and to better explain all the different people that you're considering when you're thinking of accessibility. We also have our own point here about experience parity, talking about equality, and that we should all be treated equally with this, with visual and non-sighted users as well. So it's kind of a little point there. And then also we have a whole page talking about what we do for accessibility, which this has been there before, but I wanted to flesh it out a little bit better and give a better understanding of what PatternFly does and how we also test it, that we're not just saying we do these things, that we're continuously testing and reiterating and trying to improve our current accessibility. That's what this page is all about. And then I've also updated and added information to our product development guide. So there was a section on the accessibility guide before that was about this, but this fleshes it out further, gives more information, and tries to organize it in a way that is clearer to consume. So we have the general questions to consider when you're testing or thinking about your accessibility, the questions to ask yourself in terms of the big picture, and then also some main points that you could look at with your products. You can toggle all the information so you can get all of it at one time, or you can kind of start digging in slowly like piece through the different things you should take a look at. And then we also have techniques on this. So one of the things that I've added is a little more information on labeling. It seems like a really simple concept, but it's actually one of the major issues I often see with products is labeling and making sure that they know what to label, when to label, and to actually improve the experience for assistive technology. So there's some points about that. Understanding form fields can be a topic, icons and images, and explaining the differences of the icons and when to use them, how it affects the accessibility, etc. And then also a point on focus. And an additional page that I've kind of really revamped is the testing page. Before we had a couple main points of things to test, but I wanted to dig in deeper into this and to fully explain what to look at when you're testing. I think this is an area that people feel uncomfortable with sometimes, is actually looking at their work and saying, is this accessible? So I fleshed out a little bit more of those main points that we had previously. I've added a little section about our PatternFly accessibility script that we've written that uses Axe and how you can add that to the CI/CD build. So there's some explanation here in terms of what that report would look like and how to actually add that. Some things about keyboard, which this stuff was kind of here before. So this has always been here, but it's a good point to know, is that there are different keyboard shortcuts for each of the voice or for each of the screen readers. And these are linked here, but the main things are actually just to look at. You can really understand a screen reader pretty quickly if you just learn the main navigation forms. So these would be very, very helpful if you want to better understand the different screen readers. Now this is a section that I've definitely added a lot to. I've noticed that screen readers and assistive technology can kind of be like the mythical creature of accessibility, where people don't feel comfortable with it, they don't always understand it very well, and the things that you're developing and how they impact the screen reader experience. So I've made some points here of the different things that would impact the screen reader or assistive technology experience, so you can better understand the things that you're doing and how they would impact the users that are consuming this. So there's a lot of different things you can take a look at here. And then also I wanted to create a checklist for your testing. So if you want to take a look at your work and see how it matches up for the accessible experience, here's some questions that you can actually work with and go through and check it on your own. Have you met all these points? So there's the general questions to ask, kind of like the idea of the big picture again of, does it make sense? Can you find it? Is it labeled, etc. So these are kind of like the big picture. Then you can take a look at the structure, you can take a look at the rotor menu, the different ways that you can figure out how your page is structured and whether this makes sense in a context view for screen readers. And then also labeling, going through each of the different elements that you might have on that page. Do they make sense? Is it clearly labeled? Is the context there? And this has been added so that you can use this as a reference point, and anytime you want to take a look at what you have and see if it actually matches these things that you would expect, this is something you can keep referring to. So we've tried to make this content a little bit easier to understand and also organized so that you can go exactly to what you want when you want it. And so it's not as hard to get exactly the content that you'd like. However, I really want to hear feedback from you guys if you're using this. If you find, for example, on the development guide that there's a topic that is confusing to you or that you think that this should address better, definitely let me know. I'm happy to continue adding to this. I want this to kind of be a living doc that gets added as we have more information or as we determine there's an issue for certain products. If there's something that's confusing, we want to be the source of truth for you guys on accessibility and how to actually address this. Or if there's something you're testing that you feel like this doesn't quite address, definitely let me know. I want to make sure that all of this information is clear and understandable and that I'm actually fulfilling the questions that you guys might have. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask, but otherwise, that's my update.
Awesome. Yeah, and the work to try and educate development teams on accessibility is ongoing. So there should be more and more resources coming out, and our team in general would love to help anybody improve their accessible experience in their products. So continue the conversation, keep it going. Thanks so much, Jessie. Next up in our agenda, we have a design guidelines update from Margot.
Hi, everyone. Nicole, do you mind sharing for me?
Oh, sure, yep. Let me pull that up.
Thank you. So I just wanted to share a couple of the new guidelines that we just added over the past few months. So the main ones are action list guidelines, jump link guidelines, code editor guidelines, and code block guidelines. And you can find them on the PatternFly website under the components page. And those are the main changes. That's basically it for my update.
All right, awesome. And I believe all of these guidelines are available on the website, right? When they're completed, they're added as a separate tab under each component on the website.
Yes, correct.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Next up, we have core updates. And I think Michael Coker is going to start those off.
Thank you. Okay, so first up, we've added a couple of new icons to the curated list of PatternFly PF icons. They're panel open and panel closed. So you can see these here. And then up next, we have some additions to the tree view component. This is for having non-expandable top-level nodes. We previously didn't have a use case for that, and we do now. And so not every top-level node has to be expandable, and the spacing and everything still works out. So that's new. And then with our skeleton component, we took a look at the animation performance and saw that there were some changes that we could make to make that a little bit faster, especially because you might have a lot of those on the page. And so basically we just moved the transform into the GPU using Translate Z and use some regular palette colors instead of RGBA in case the opacity was causing slow performance. Up next, we have additions to the page sections in the page component. And so any of our page sections now can be center aligned if you're using the limited width variation of them. And so it just aligns the section, not necessarily the content. We have a lot of examples here where like the content is centered. That's just something separate. It's just this where the white box you see is center aligned. Up next, we have worked on an editable label. So that's pretty cool. You don't really see the magic in the core workspace because everything's static, but we have the groundwork in place for the label to be editable and to transition between its regular state and then its editable state. So look out for that. That's coming soon. We have a new helper text component. So this has been built in React already, and so that's the component's going to be covered later today. But in core, we have a demo using the helper text component, and you can see this used in context of a form with different types of the helper text variations that component provides. Up next, in the Dropdown component, we now have support for disabled via aria-disabled items inside of the menu. And so a use case for this is you don't want to add the disabled attribute, for example, to one of these actions if it's a button, because doing so removes your ability to do things like focus on the element. And so if you wanted to attach, say, a tooltip to a disabled button inside of this menu list, can add the disabled attribute. So we add aria-disabled and then some custom interaction to limit the interaction that you get with these actions. So it's effectively disabled to the user, but it's not actually disabled, so you can still do things like focus on it. In our card component, we have this area in the top right where you can attach actions to this upper corner that are adjacent to the card title. We have an offset, like a negative margin offset on that element for use with the primary use case that we have, plain actions and things like a checkbox, just to keep everything properly aligned with the title. But there may be a case where you have something that's not a plain action and maybe takes up a lot of space here, and you don't want that offset to happen. You want to disable the negative margin and just have it appear in the regular flow order. In this, it's a flex layout between the title and the actions. And so we've added a variation for the card actions, is what it's called, to remove that offset, and that'll allow for different types of actions to be used there. Up next, we have a new variation of the toolbar, and it's just to make the toolbar sticky to the top of whatever its element is whatever element it's in. So the page component has sticky sections, and that's another way to make your toolbar sticky, is by putting it inside of a page section that's sticky. But you might have a use case where you can't put the toolbar in a page section that's sticky, and so you just want to make the toolbar itself sticky. Similar to pagination. Pagination also has that ability. And so you can see this here. It's just regular sticky positioning on the toolbar itself. Up next, we developed a dark theme for the log viewer, so that's pretty cool. You can see that there. Up next, the expandable section component, we added a large variation. It's called, or it's referred to in the examples as a disclosure variation. And you can see it here. So a regular expandable section just kind of appears in line with content above and below it, no special like bounding box or anything like that. The disclosure variation includes this box shadow, and then in the expanded state, the expanded content's also in the box with the box shadow, and then you get a accent highlight on the left to show that it's expanded. And that's all from me. Up next, Bonnie is going to present some work that she has done since our last community meeting. So I'll hand it over to Bonnie.
All right, I will go ahead and share my screen. All right. So hi, I'm Bonnie. I'm the Core and Accessibility intern, and I'll be going over a couple of updates I've made to some of our demos and components since last meeting. So I'll go over the demos first really quickly. We'll start with the notification drawer demo. So we noticed that the text on some of the red notifications said that they were unread, so we needed to update those. And also the danger notification example was on all of the HTML demos when it should have only been on the expanded attention demo. So we fixed that. We replaced the danger notification with another recommendation notification, and then we updated all of the text on those to say red. And then moving on to the Overflow menu demo, we noticed that the examples for Overflow in the core documentation were missing the aria-expanded attribute, which toggles between true and false based on whether the components collapsed or expanded. So we fixed that, as you can see on the code example on the website, which makes our Overflow menu examples more screen reader accessible. Now let's talk about new variants. We'll start with the context selector. So we needed to satisfy a use case for placing a context selector in the page sidebar above the vertical navigation, and for this, we created a plain text variant of the context selector, which removes the background color and the outline on the border, leaving just the text and the toggle icon. And so the demo you're seeing here is the same one that you'll see on the HTML tab of its component page, as well as documentation for how to use it. And lastly, I want to go over a new variant of the search input. So we had a design issue proposing a search input that included the static search icon to the left, like you see on the basic search bar, as well as an explicit submit button on the right. So we created this variant here so that users wouldn't have to use an input group to be able to get a search with a submit button. And that is all for my contributions to Core since last meeting.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Michael and Bonnie. Next, we have a handful of updates from the React team, and we're going to start with Katie.
Yep. All right. Let me just share my screen. Hit the right screen. Perfect. Okay. So first up, we have a new button variant called Danger. So you can see it here. Basically, there's a property for the variant called Danger that will give you this primary colored red button. There's also a new flag you can see down here called is danger, and this specifically is for when you're using a link or secondary button, which is already using the same variant prop. You can change those two types of buttons to a danger variant by passing in this flag. So to give you the option for a red secondary as well as a red link for danger. And that summarizes that. Next up, we have a new example for menu. We have, well, two new examples really. We have a new, for parity with select, we have a footer for menu now, so you can see it at the bottom. It's an extra element that you can pass in any content. In this case, you'll see an action button that might be something you want to click on to maybe view more or go to a different page. And we also have a new demo for view more, which is a button that's kind of in line with your current actions. And if you click this, it's actually hooked up, so it'll swap to a spinner to indicate loading, and you might load more actions that way. Also in line with this, so if you're in the actual list with keyboard, it will just tab straight to the button and be part of the navigable items. And if you click that with like space, it will also act as a click for the button, and you'll find all of your actions. Next up, we have 2 new demos for Composable menu, which is basically taking our menu component with a popper component and a toggle to basically create a full-blown menu that you can customize. First, with the new demos here, we have drill down menu, so you can see it's collapsed, and then when you open it, it is a full drill down example. So you can tab through that, and it will kind of go back and forth for the different menus and close. The second new composable menu demo is filter tree menu, and this is a use case where maybe you want to have a kind of complex search structure. You can now use our tree view component with menu and toggle to kind of create this expanding tree structure for your menu. In this case, you see like the badges might be associated with like matching elements that match like a ready state or an updated state, or you can have these badges represent like the number of things in the subfolders. It's all customizable, and you can see the check marks kind of reflect the full structure just like our tree view component. Like that. And then next up, let's see, we have a new component called helper text. The design of this is to kind of go along with like a validated input, or if you just want to indicate some extra helper text. We have a bunch of different variants to choose for styling. We have default, indeterminate, warning, success, and error. This gives you different text colors and kind of different indications of what it's used for. These static helper texts do come with default icons that you can toggle on with a simple has icon property. This matches the later on dynamic icons. Just if you want to keep some, consistency. You can override these icons with an icon prop. You can see pasting in a manual icon. Just if you want to customize which icons go with each state of static helper text, but don't really like the default icons. Helper text can also be kind of grouped together inside a single container, just to kind of group them together logically. And they can also be marked as dynamic. This gives you slightly different styling and different default icons that you can see, or same default icons actually you can see here. But this is kind of meant to be, if you're pairing this with like a validated input, it's meant to indicate that these helper texts can change their state and update their styling basically on the fly. So it's just an indicator and to help out with that. And dynamic helper text can also be grouped together under a single container. And kind of in line with this as well, you can also change the component to be an unordered list instead of just a series of nested divs for your structure. And last new example is table. And composable table, we have a new draggable row table example that me and Nicole worked on. This is just similar to our data list, draggable data list. We have a new kind of column here that shows all the drag buttons, and if you click and drag, you can now reorder a list, or table in this case. Just to be clear, this is currently only for composable table, so you're going to have to use the composable table variant if you want to get this feature. But that is there for everyone to use now. And I think that's it for my updates.
Awesome. Next up is Titani.
Good morning. All right, so I'll be giving some updates on the first component. It's a description list. We've added help text for description list term. So over here you can see the term is styled differently as a button. I click on the term, pop over appears with the help text for all these terms here. This is how the term looks without the help text support. And to support this, we added the description list term help text class and the description list term help text button. So in the description list term help text, you would wrap that around the popover, which would be triggered by the description list term help text button over here. So that would replace what we had before, description list term. That's that for the description list. And the select, similar to what Katie just demoed for the menu component, the select component now has support for a footer. Here we have the footer. So you just would pass in a footer prop with a new React node. And then also we added support for view more button, similar to the menu component, where you click the view more button, get a loading spinner. This is still in beta for the select component, so if there's any feedback about the API, please let us know. So to support that for the API, we added the loading variant, so it would either be a spinner or a select view more object, which would have the callback for the on-click of the view more button and the text that's contained within the button. Okay, so that's that for the select. And for the text component, we added a prop to apply visited link styling, as you see here, when the browser determines that the link has been visited. So if you add is visited link styling, the browser would style the link, as you see here, when it's a visited link. That's it for my updates.
All right, awesome. I also have a few updates as well. So let me share my screen. All right, the first one I have is an update to the wizard component, where we've allowed for expandable steps in the navigation of the wizard. So if you click on an expandable nav item, it'll expand it, and then you can navigate to the substeps. Substeps C's content just got put into the content on the right here. And so that is implemented by providing substeps inside of top level steps. So relatively simple to implement. I'd love to hear feedback on that. It also is, the substeps are navigated using the next and back buttons here in this example as well. I think that's all for that. Another update is the menu component now has a scrollable feature. So if you have many items, you can control the height and allow these items to be scrollable. And in the case of drill down menus, we also have the ability to set a max height so that even if, so without the max height being set as you start navigating these subgroups, the height of the menu changes. But if you want to set a max menu height, it will make these drill down menus have a max height, and then it will not change as you navigate through the different drill down levels. In the case of the scrollable menu variant, you put a menu height on the menu content, which wraps the list, and that's how you make it scrollable. And in the case of the max height of the menu, you do something similar. You just set oh, there's a lot more content in here. If I can find it quick enough. You set, drill down menus are complicated. Here it is. The max menu height is set passed to the menu content to make the drill down menu have a max height. Sorry if that made anyone seasick to watch me scroll all through all that. But the last update I have is also a few updates to the log viewer. One is just a styling update. Before we were styling search results a little bit different, but now if it finds search results in the log viewer, it just highlights the matched string. So it behaves a little bit more like the Control F feature might on your browser. So that's small and something you might notice. Also, this is going to be a little bit harder. So the log viewer is virtualized, so it takes into account how wide it is and how tall it is, and the height of each of these rows in the log viewer, and it has to do a lot of math to figure out exactly how many rows it paints, because by nature of being virtualized, it only is going to render and build the rows in the log viewer that are currently visible. So if it's a lot of data, it's not building all of these rows until it would actually be in view. But that means that when making it responsive, it has to do a lot of extra math. So one of the things that happens is as the window is being resized, we have provided a loading state, which in this example is empty. But you can override that with whatever loading state you'd like if you'd want. So that as the size of the window is changing, and it's possible that the width of the log viewer is changing, it waits to paint the rows that are going to end up being visible until you're finished resizing. So that's our solution to making it responsive, if you can see that there. So those are the updates for the log viewer, and there will be more coming shortly. So as the log viewer is still in beta and is changing rather rapidly and getting new features added to it all the time, definitely play with that if you're interested and give us feedback. That's all of the React updates I have. And I think we also have a few React updates from Michael Coker. Hand it back to you.
Hello again. So I made a few updates to the list component. First is this plain variation. So instead of getting bullets and all of that, you can apply is plain to the list, and you still get the spacing and all of that sort of stuff, just not bullets. And then also added a variation to introduce horizontal rules between the items, and that variation is called is bordered. Works really well with is plain. And then the next thing is adding, or the ability to add icons, custom icons to your list. Also pairs quite well with the is plain prop. You just specify an icon prop with the icon that you want to show up for that item. And then we added another variation for large icons in your list instead of these smaller icons. And it's the same basic usage with regular icons, and you just specify an icon size prop on the parent list component, and value of large will give you that. And that was it.
Okay. Thank you. All right, next up in the agenda, we have an update about some, I don't know how to describe it, branch naming. I'll just hand it over to Zach. You can give us your update.
Sure. Yeah, so this update's only for contributors to core, React, and org. We're renaming our master branches to main per the decree from our CTO. And if you're checking out branches from master, by the end of the week, they should be renamed main. I just wanted to rename the core one. So we'll send out an email with commands you need to run if you want to update your local master to main as well. But basically everywhere that you'd use the word master to cut your branch, just use the word main. That's it.
All right, thank you. Yes, if anyone has any questions or issues, feel free to utilize the Slack channels, reach out to any of us, and we'll all go through the process of making sure we've updated our workflow accordingly, so we should be able to help others as well. All right, and lastly, we have an update looking toward the future with Matt Carano.
Hey everyone, yes, I get to close things out today, but with the usual, just kind of telling you what we're currently working on, things you should expect in the near future. I just have a couple slides, so I guess I'll just share my screen out. So I first wanted to talk about something new that we're going to be introducing within the next few weeks called community extensions. So basically community extensions will be a place on the website where projects can share code and solutions built from PatternFly components. So these would be higher level things that are more solution based than what a typical component is. Things that like the new PatternFly quick starts, perhaps extensions that we've had for a while, like the catalog view, like the React console. These would be things that could be shared in this space. But also it'll be kind of an open space where anybody from the community can contribute into this without necessarily going through the rigorous process for contributing to the PatternFly core release. But if you have an idea or you have something that you've done that's cool to extend PatternFly, we will welcome folks to contribute that and share that among the community. So one important point is these are things that are not just developed and contributed, but maintained by the community. So if you're going to contribute something into this space, we do expect that you will be able to provide ongoing support and maintenance of that extension. These extensions may live anywhere, so in some cases we may decide it makes sense to create a new repo inside of the PatternFly organization, or in other cases this may be something that lives in your own GitHub space, and we'll have the opportunity to have links to any documentation or usage or design. So this is something that we are currently in the process of working on and evolving, and we should be able to, by the next time we meet, and show you more. But I just wanted to kind of get that out there, let you know we are doing this, and to see if anybody has any questions in advance of actually showing you the pilot. Okay, if not, again, look for that within the coming month. And then in terms of what's in progress, so I just wanted to note to people on this call that we're currently in the midst of our midsummer breakaway sprint, we decided, the team's been working hard on new features during the first half of the year, and we wanted to give the development team an opportunity to step away from feature work and focus on some projects related to improving our documentation, infrastructure, process. As any of you who are working on projects know, it's always hard to find time to do these things. So we've carved out 3 weeks between now through the middle of July where the team will be focused on these items. What that means is we are not planning a July release. The next PatternFly feature sprint will kick off in the middle of August and lead to a release August 4th. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that timing. And again, you can visit our PatternFly roadmap on GitHub if you want to see where any issues you submitted sit on there. We are kind of planning out through the end of the year at this point into December, and always feel to reach out to me if you have any question about priorities of issues or roadmap planning in general. Okay, unless there's any other questions, I'm going to hand it back over to Nicole. Nicole, you may be on mute.
Oh, thank you. Yep. Okay. The last slide in the slide deck are a couple links. One, a link to join the PatternFly mailing list if you're not already receiving PatternFly emails. I did send out a reminder to this meeting yesterday, so you can even check your inbox, see if you got an email yesterday about this meeting, and know if you're on the PatternFly mailing list. Also, if you would like to present in the future, feel free to reach out to me. We'd love to hear updates from anyone in the community who consumes PatternFly, who's building out extensions or features, or if you have any questions. This is a great place to bring them. So if you would like any information at the meeting, definitely reach out to me. That's my email. We have a few moments. I can pause and open it up to any questions for anyone here while you have the PatternFly team all together. Feel free. At the risk of sitting here too long in silence. We will call it a little bit early. Like I said, I will post the recording of this meeting and send out the slides and link to the recording shortly to the mailing list. So make sure you're on it. That's all I've got. I hope you all have a good final day of June. Isn't that wild? And we'll see you at the end of July with more updates, possibly. Actually, since we have the breakaway sprint, we'll have to I haven't decided yet if we'll have an update meeting, community meeting, since there will not be any new releases between now and then. You can keep an eye on your email, especially if you're on the mailing list. But either way, we'll hear from you all soon, and have a good day, everyone.